Okay, we're live. Guys, super excited to talk to you about Appalachia. What a journey it's been. 2 months of content from that region of the country, 8 videos in total. The goal was to get all different perspectives, and with 8 videos, you're barely getting the full spectrum. But I tried my hardest to get into the coal story, the native story, the economic story, and it's been quite a ride. So today is all about going into a bit of a deeper dive on some of the things I learned along this journey. Because when I'm making these videos, a lot of it's I'm meeting with someone, getting into their story. My job is to get them to open up on camera and speak, and for us all to learn more about that world. So me speaking my mind about a topic or a place isn't usually the number one. It's about learning from the locals. So today we're going to go over some of the deeper things I learned along this journey. Share that with you guys, and then I want to take your questions at the end. So I made a list of a few things. I want to make sure I didn't forget, because I could talk about it for hours, really. I'd say firstly, with shoots like this, there's always a challenge of getting people on camera. And Appalachia, especially. Appalachia, I was going in with the mindset this would be the toughest series. Why? Because they're very well aware of the people in, say, deep Appalachia, that they're usually perceived poorly, as hicks, as idiots, whatever it might be, right? And so they're very wary of someone coming in with a camera saying, "Hey, you want to get in my video?" Because they're so used to just being thrown under the bus. I mean, you can look through Hollywood, the news, whatever it is. It's never usually a great story coming out of that part of the country. So getting people on the camera was the challenge. And I had I worked for weeks in advance to get people, like, think of stories and find locals there. And I got a couple that really made it. But then some of the videos, like the one I went across the poorest region of America, I did that on my own. I was, I had a point A to point B, and I'm like, I got to get into local stories. And that's just a lot of luck. That is so much. You stop at a general store and that delays you up a second. So the next stop, there's a person crossing your path, like those missionaries, right? Those Mormon missionaries. And then you get that conversation, and everything just sort of, the story develops as I go. And that can be a total bomb. I could run into nobody and nobody wants to talk on the camera. So a lot of it's really luck. Or you have like when I did the coal story with Wes's friend came over from the neighbor's house, and he starts talking about the coal industry and just about life and really interesting stories. And I'm like, I always have to ask for people's approval. Like, can I shoot this? Are you okay being on camera? And he's like, no, I don't want to be on camera. And then he sits and talks for the next 30 minutes, dropping gold bombs, nuggets of content. It's killing me. And it's like me trying to maneuver, hey, you gotta go home so we can make this video type stuff. Some of the days I was preparing in advance, like that town Welsh, if you saw that in that video in southern West Virginia. And I went out there. I met a young guy who's doing really well, like really well. He had a couple of different businesses. He said he was making $400,000 a year. And I'm like, man, that's a cool story. Now, that's not what people think out in this rundown looking place where coal has sort of died off and their house is decaying into the soil. Wow, this guy's doing really well out there. I want to show that contrarian story. That's not what people think. Everything all set up. I went out the next day to shoot, and he ghosted me, like just disappeared. And so probably someone said to him, "Hey, are you sure you want to get on YouTube?" I mean, I don't know what happened behind the scenes. So it was a hard shoot. And I always look at like the Amish or the Hasidic Jews as the benchmarks of, oh, that's going to be really difficult to get a camera on those stories. But Appalachia was right up there. Um, but luckily we got through. We got the people's voices. Uh, Thank you guys for all showing up here. I really appreciate it. Catlin, 1 o'clock from Melbourne, Australia. That's so cool. Thank you for the super chat here, GMAT. That's awesome. And Dana, member of the channel. You guys are awesome. Everyone's awesome who's been part of this. I didn't know how it would be received, and I'm actually quite surprised it was received so well. And I never know going into a series, but I'll take your questions later. But why it was so popular and why people are so curious about Appalachia, I would really love to know. I have my theories, but I would love to hear yours for sure. So one of the big takeaways, I'm gonna go through a few big takeaways that I've just sort of been thinking about the last couple of weeks. One is the accent, right? And I grew up in the Northeast in Vermont, and Vermont is a very much. I moved out when I was 17. Like I was that kid that get me out at all costs. I can't wait to get out of here type kid. But it was always sort of like the South is looked down upon. I would say that's sort of a, not everyone thinks that, but I'm saying if there's an original thought that comes to mind, it's not like, oh, Southern Appalachia is awesome. It's more like, yeah, they speak differently, and it's sort of a snooty look down the nose of those people mentality. At least when I grew up. I mean, you would grow up in Vermont thinking we had Mount Everest. There was a mountain that's 4,000 feet, Mount Mansfield, a little over 4,000 feet. And you would think that was Everest. I mean, it was just sort of like, it is a beautiful state, and I love it. And I was just back there. And it was really nice to go back to the roots. Now I appreciate it. But you wouldn't know that Mount Mitchell in North Carolina is 6,002 or 300 feet, something like that. And that there's all of these beautiful cultures and landscapes down there. At least that's how I was raised. So getting into Appalachia and, going in with fresh eyes, because I've seen a lot of the world and doing this work, it just brings down a lot of judgment, I would say. I mean, everyone's judgmental to some level. I think it's one of the bad traits of humanity. So I consciously work on not being in this work. Has just naturally helped me open my eyes to other ways of life and other people. So going in, I was just very happy and curious, and I went in with that mentality. And the accent there, I think, is a beautiful thing. I love it. I think these regional differences are what makes a country interesting. It's not all one sound or one look. It's all mixed up. And by going to deep Appalachia, it's almost like going to another country. Seriously, if you live out on the West Coast or if you live in the Northeast, and when you go into southern West Virginia, eastern Kentucky, parts of North Carolina, parts of Virginia, it's like another cultural experience. And to me, that's fascinating. I guess it's very fascinating to all you guys. That's why you watched it. Thank you for the Laura. I appreciate the donation to the channel. Very cool of you. So going in there with fresh eyes and just a real curiosity and openness to it. So you have this accent that I find amazing. But what I learned along the journey is people are very well aware of how they're perceived by the outside. And I'm speaking in generalities, obviously. They're very well aware. And, growing up in some of these poor towns, I'd be like, yeah, just get out. Just leave. I grew up in a small town. I was thinking from 15 years old on how I could get out at 17. Like, I'm out of here. And it was easy for me because I had experiences around the Northeast getting out. I raced bikes, so I saw other places. And secondly, my parents were from New Jersey. I didn't have deep roots there. There wasn't like 5 generations of history on the land where I grew up on. Though I grew up there, there weren't the deep roots. And so when you're in Appalachia, in the deep hollers where you have 4 or 5, maybe even 6 generations of families, and there is a very strong accent. I mean, some of it is so thick you're like trying to, you're really listening because it's like, what did he say? What did she say? And that's my fault. I have an accent to them. Who owns the rights to the accent, right? Nobody really does. I guess most people speak standard English, but when you're in their turf, that's how they speak, and that's my. I'm the outsider, so like I'm just thinking, why don't they just move? If you got a problem, and a lot do move out, but it's when you grew up with that accent, and people in the chat will be able to tell me maybe their challenges or struggles, and you go to a big urban center in the country. I think immediately you sort of have to prove yourself. Like you speak in with a strong accent and it's looked down upon, I think, by a lot. This is what I was told. I can't speak for everybody. This is what I was told. And so that's a barrier. That's a barrier. That's like you go to a northern city or something, or the West Coast, and you might be perceived more negatively than positively by the way you speak. So there's that challenge. There's the challenge of, again, your family roots, maybe 4 or 5, 6 generations. There is a deep culture there. There is something very special in deep intermountain Appalachia. There's a deep culture. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of soul. There's a lot of, we got your back. If we either love you or hate you. It reminds me of Ukraine in that sense. I lived in Ukraine for 4 years. Okay, so I'm speaking from experience. My wife's Ukrainian. And there it was like, they either love you or they don't, and it's very clear. There's very little in between ground on that front, and Appalachia had that vibe, which I think is quite refreshing. I think most of us want authenticity, and look, rudeness is never fun, but I guess I'm used to it from living in Eastern Europe. Like, straight up where you stand, and when you stand on the good side of things, wow, doors just open up in that part of the country. And I know I'm a bit all over the place. I just want to make sure I get everything out of my head. Appalachia is a term that's not really understood. And I've sort of come up with maybe my own definition. So hear me out here. We have geographic Appalachia, which is basically Georgia, even I think northern Alabama, all the way up to Quebec is the Appalachian mountain range. So that's the geography. But when you think of deep Appalachian culture, I don't think of Vermont, where I grew up, or like New Hampshire or Maine as Appalachian culture. I think of that as like Northeastern puritanical roots, not the same as West Virginia, deep Appalachia, Kentucky, parts of North Carolina where I went. And that's what I wanted to pull out, is the heart of that culture. Now, another question that's come up a lot. I want to thank a lot of you here. Okay, Sandy, appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Dave, you're the man. Dana, is Dana supporting with rupees? Are those Indian rupees? That's so cool. And that's another thing, guys. Like, the world took interest in this. How many, I mean, so many Australians, so many Scots. There's a lot of Scottish ancestry, a lot of Scottish blood in Appalachia. Like, there's a lot of more Scottish, I think, than Irish. But the world took interest in this part of America. And I think there is an interest in America in the parts away from Hollywood and New York City and what everyone knows. And it really made me happy that people took interest in that. And I didn't know going into this, honestly. Could have worked, could have not. So one topic I want to get into, a touchy topic, but I have no problem with doing that. I try to get understanding through the videos on these topics I'm going to go into right now. One being the flag, the Confederate flag. Now, in modern times, where we're at in 2023, I'd say in most places, it's looked at as a symbol of racism, a symbol of racist South. Okay. And so I always find flags to be interesting because the interpretation is often different from the interpreter versus the person that shows that flag. And we all know the history, and I think most people are on board with how terrible slavery was in the history of that part of our culture, like of the past, and it's existed all over the world, unfortunately. And humans can do dark, twisted, sick things. So I think we're mostly on board with that. But the flag in 2023, I went in with that mentality, like, I want to get into this person's head a bit. What does that mean to them? And I'm going to oversimplify because everyone has a different opinion, but there are two things I heard. It's either heritage or hate. Heritage or hate. So what does that mean? Hate would be a symbol of slavery and the Confederacy that wanted to keep slavery. And heritage would be cultural roots, not just looking at one issue, but this is somewhat of an identity. So you could have an American flag and associate that with slavery in a way too. Potentially, you could observe it that way because our founding fathers had slaves. I mean, that's up for debate, right? So when I got into the Confederate flag, you know, it blew my mind because I would see them waving, and for example, I saw one on the Cherokee Reservation, Native, Native American. I saw a few there. I saw with West, the coal miner, he had Confederate flag everything, on his motorcycle jacket, on his cell phone case. And I asked him straight up, I'm like, does that mean it's a racist symbol to you? And he said, I mean, one of his best friends is black that he talks to every day. So it gets very confusing. So now I don't look at someone that has a Confederate flag and say, oh, that person believes in slavery or racism. And you can think that's crazy that someone would have that flag still or not. But to go to their perspective, there's a lot of pride in the culture and heritage there. And they feel like they've been pushed a bit hard and looked down upon. And like for me, I've never been good with people telling me what to do or how to be or what to think. So if someone tells me one thing, I sort of react, put it right back in their face. And I think there's some of that going on right now. There's like, oh, you can't have the Confederate flag. Well, screw you. I'm going to freaking put a bigger one out there and put it in your face. Don't tell me how to live and how to be. Totally understand that. Goes in deep with the history there. It's a very rebellious place. A lot of people moved to mountainous Appalachia because they were avoiding the law or wanted to have nothing to do with authority, like leave me alone mentality. And it still exists there very much. More of an independent, resilient way of looking at life. Now we can get into the complexities of that because there are towns literally that are half on drugs right now that aren't resilient and independent. There are towns that people are doped out living off government money, 50% of them in some of these towns. So that's another argument. Like any of this stuff, the further you poke into it, it's like, oh my God, okay, we're going to go down to that level and then another level and another level. And it gets really confusing. What's much easier to do is say, here's a region, here's a flag. They're all racist. And that's how I'm going to look at them. And I think that's not only unfair, it's just, I think, a very limited way of looking at life. So in that case, if I didn't want to put the time in to understand the people there or the culture, I would just say, I don't know. It's like if someone's talking about brain surgery. You tell me, you're the expert. I have no clue. I'm not going to give you my opinion because I really don't know that space at all. And I think with culture and politics, everyone has an opinion, but a lot of times people don't have an understanding or aren't curious or open to the understanding. And that's what I feel like came out in this series, which made me happy. Okay, Maribel, thank you so much. Brian, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And don't have your name here, but Schniz on the team. Thank you. Really appreciate it. I don't want to speak all about the hard stuff, but this is some of the stuff that was out of the videos, and I know a lot of you are interested in. So, when it comes to slavery in Appalachia, which was interesting, which I didn't know because I thought just uniformly that was the South. It's not. It was never an agrarian society. The it's mountainous. It's full of valleys and hills, and the agriculture was very small and limited. So once you go off this mountain range, if you go towards the east, or depending where you're at to the west, that's where most of the slavery existed. So there are two reasons that Appalachia didn't have much slavery. One is just there there wasn't the work for it. It was always a very poor region. And two, well, I just answered it too. They're just too poor. It's like most people didn't have money. I mean, I heard of towns where they didn't get toilets until the 60s and phone lines until the 70s and stuff like that. So a lot of it is been somewhat behind, um, which leads to a lot of the poverty. Coal, southern West Virginia, parts of Kentucky, that was everything. The coal from those mines really built the country. That went into the steel. I didn't know that you needed coal to make steel. I mean, I guess it makes common sense, right? But I never really thought it through. So all the metal we see in the buildings we have, all that steel, that comes a lot of it from the energy of those mountains, the coal. And so coal is, depending where you're at, like southern West Virginia, it's in the DNA to some degree. I mean, that's how the region was developed, and that's what a lot of people are hanging on to. And back in the day, the coal miners, I mean, I didn't even know this stuff. It's crazy. Now it seems like common knowledge, but the coal mine companies paid in scrip, which was their own currency. They had their own coins. And as the worker, you had to shop at their shop. How crazy is that? So you couldn't even take the money you earned and leave. Like you were sort of stuck there. And immigrants from all over the country, or sorry, all over the world, came for the opportunity because it was still better than being where they're from. But once they're here, realizing that this is sort of a feudal setup where the coal companies controlled everything. I don't want to say all coal companies are bad. And I heard now some of the coal companies, and I don't know the industry well, but are really good with the workers. The pay is pretty high, and they're having a hard time finding people. Like a lot of young people don't want to do it, and rightfully so. It's dangerous, hard work. So when you get into some of these valleys, some of these haulers, you have some haulers are doing well and you feel a good vibe, and others are like just drug zones, like hardcore drug zones where it's a lot of meth, fentanyl, all sorts of stuff. And the solution these days seems to be Suboxone. And I'm not a doctor and I don't know medicine that well, but you see signs for Suboxone all over the place. And that's just a milder opioid from my understanding that gets people off the heavier stuff, but is still very addictive. And this isn't judging anyone for using the substance. I don't know enough about it, but I found that interesting that there's a hard push on another drug. And I feel like so much of the deeper problems come from economic conditions, from the poverty, from the lack of work. And then this ties in again to what I said earlier. Why doesn't everyone just leave? And I gave you my thoughts on that. It's like it's not easy for a lot of people to get out if they have no skills. They're really removed. If you're poor in New York City and you have the skills and you can work hard, you're living in an outer borough, for example, you at least have an opportunity. You can get on the subway, get into the city, and figure something. There's options out there. No, not happening. There's really little out there. So I found it funny that the guy Nick, I did a video with, he was the last video. His wife is Filipino, and from Philippines, they lived in New York and now live out there. And her first impression was, wow, there are poor white people too. She never thought there were poor white people in America. And it was a huge cultural shock and eye opener for her because she's from the Philippines. And was in a wealthier place, and then out there was like, wow, we're doing better than a lot. And yeah, I think a lot of people don't understand that there are serious connections between, some people living in Appalachia, inner city America, and native reservations, as in not working, living off government assistance to a level, and on this cycle of drugs and survival. And I tried to get that out in one of my videos with Chance. We talked about the drug situation there and what he was doing to get people out. And as a country, the more I go deeper into it, these are our big problems, and they need big solutions and deep dives. And I think Suboxone, for example, while it really helps some people, is not going to the root of the problem. And I try to capture that in the series. All right, guys. Brian, thank you so much. Brian, you're right. There's silver, lead, and iron. Yeah, there's other minerals, but like in southern West Virginia, I believe the big one is coal. John, thank you. Appreciate it. Jim, if I missed your name, I apologize. I'm just trying to scroll through here. Uh, Alec Gnome, thank you. Appreciate it. Thor, a lot of Scandinavians got interested. Jay Muir, great name. Appreciate it. Maribel Sanchez, thank you from Chicago. Going to have some videos from Chicago soon for you. And if I missed anyone here, I apologize. I'm clicking through. So another interesting observation was voting. And I got a lot of people saying they get what they voted for. And here's what I would say, coming as an outsider, trying to put my, always trying to get in the shoes of the person living in a place. I really work on that, try to see things the way they're seeing it. And if you take, let's say, Mingo County, West Virginia, it's voted very red. But very recently, if you look through the voter rolls and how the elections have swayed the last 100 years, you can look it up on Wikipedia. Check it out. Mingo County, West Virginia. I would argue to say it's been more blue historically than San Francisco. And how crazy is that? Like, it was blue as it came, and only recently changed red. And that was during Obama. And you might ask why. Well, I don't remember the exact words, but Obama talked about either shutting down coal eventually or reducing coal. And that's what it all comes down to. Put yourself in the shoes of the people living in a place. Like, if you're in an industry and one guy's saying, we're going to close down or reduce your industry, and the other guy's saying, we're not going to touch it or we're going to strengthen it, who are you going to vote for when your mortgage is on the line, when you have kids you want to send to college, this is the only way of life in many of these towns? It's a no-brainer, really. I mean, think of any industry. I always ask people, put yourself in the shoes. Like, if you're in healthcare, let's just do a crazy hypothetical. You're in healthcare, and of course this won't happen, but just play along with me. And one politician says, we're going to, reduce or shut down all healthcare jobs. And the other says, we're going to strengthen the industry. Who are you going to vote for if that's where your money's coming from? So even if it's just words, I mean, the bar is so low in the country right now, with promises, with politics, with media, that just an acknowledgement goes leaps and bounds above the guy that's like, I'm gonna shut your show down here. And you can say, yeah, I believe we should have no coal and the environment's number one, and fair enough, that you're free to believe that. To my understanding, you still need to smelt metal with coal. Still need to make steel with coal, or that's the process where is the majority process. That will change. I think it's going to go more towards hydrogen, but at the time you still do need that. And then the irony in all of this is, who's building the coal plants right now? China. Where's the coal going? China. So though we might shut things down here as far as coal power plants, I don't know if we're shutting down stuff right now or not, but where are they building? And if we're in, in one world, then it's not solving a problem in that sense. So even if you go on the economic level, which is total, I mean, sorry, the not economic, the ecology approach on this, it's totally understandable. But just think of your industry getting shut down and how you'd react when everything's on the line financially. And that's how it is there. And I understand where they come from. Totally makes total sense to me. And yeah, that was one I got. They're like, they're voting for what they get, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, look at it from their perspective. Um, the culture. I'm going to answer you guys' questions here soon. That was a big rant. The culture is very attractive in a sense. I mean, it's very juxtaposed. You have, like I said, some of these towns, 50% of the people on drugs, and it's depressing as hell. It's really bad. Um, but there's a spirit and a depth and a warmth and a hospitality that you're not going to get many other places at this level. At least I haven't seen it. So it's got all these emotions baked into it. I strongly suggest any of you to cruise through Appalachia. Now, here are the challenges. When you get deep in there, and I try to go as deep as possible, hotels, you might be going around to Walmart for breakfast. You might not eat the best depending on where you're at. I mean, there are like the term food desert. I mean, a lot of mini marts and people living off, potato chips. They're not eating fresh fruit. Some are, some aren't. Be prepared for that, but also be prepared to stop on the side of the road, talk to someone, and they open up and bring you into their world, and maybe invite you into their home. And you leave, you go to bed at the end of the night feeling very full, in the sense that you're making these human connections that I think we all long for. So it's one of those regions where you get, you just got to go in with respect. Don't look down. I mean, that's universal for anywhere. Just nobody likes that. Don't come in, I'm better, I'm from the city and I have more money. Or there are people out there that actually have a lot of money. That was interesting too. It's not even, you can't just say even if you're in the poorest region of the country, there's still wealthy people in those areas. So big eye opener for me. Really loved it. See if there are any other points I want to mention. I mean, I touched on it, but I just want to finish up with my rant here on problems in America and Appalachia inner city native reservations. There's a lot in common. I mean, they're different. Each group will say, no, I'm not like those people. I'm just saying unemployment, living off government, need opportunity and guidance and job training and leadership. I think a lot of it is just like, what are you going for in life? And when everything's sort of depressed around you, what gets you motivated? Where are your examples? All three regions, parts of society are dealing with similar problems. And I also got a lot of people from different backgrounds saying, I'm Asian or I'm Black. Do you think I'd be okay traveling through these parts? And I'd say, yeah, I can't speak for you. I'm white. But I asked a lot of people this question because I wanted to know the answer. And a lot of the stuff I'm gathering, I'm just sort of like vacuuming up information on these shoots. When the camera's off, I'm in hotels talking to the lady at the counter. I'm in the Walmart talking to people. I'm talking to as many people because I'm very curious and I want to understand how the place is. And I saw a lot of interracial couples, like in the cities, like in Bluefield. That's not even really a city. I don't know what it is, 30, 50,000 people. In some of the deep stick areas, I mean, it's very white. It just always has been. But I saw way more mixing than one would think. And a lot of this stuff that we get, what's the right word, propagandized on the media. There's a distance between on the ground and what we're seeing, what our politicians and what our media is telling us. They love to divide us. It's like the number one rating grab, I guess. And of course, different groups are always going to have issues with one another. There will always be racist, and from many sides. But the vast majority of Americans, and this is why I love the United States, it's just like most of that stuff is not even a thought. And you can come into any town and talk to anyone of any background, and it works. And that's the beauty of the country. And coming back to the country after living abroad for many years and observing this, like, wow, that is something really special we have here. It's like anyone from any background can be accepted and can get along. And that's the majority. Of course, there are fringe examples where that's not true, but that's the majority. And it's not like that in every part of the world. I mean, if you're in China and if you're Uyghur and you're around all Han Chinese, I can't speak for everyone, but I don't think it's going to be as easy in that sense. Or if you're Kurdish in Iran around Persians, like the law works differently in many respects. So the beauty of this country, don't listen to the one-off cases here and there. That will just only increase because they're good for ratings, they're good division, and it's good emotional grab. How do you capture people and get them on your side or move them with a certain behavior is to put them in fear state and divide them. And the point of this content, a lot of it is to go the opposite direction and show you how it's really not like that on the ground. I talk with all different backgrounds, and again, you might be, well, you're the white dude, so you have no credibility talking about this. Yeah, maybe so, but I talk to I talk to every person of every background I can find, and I'm like, do you feel like you're ostracized here? Do you feel like you're not accepted here? And a lot of it, majority of it, this is the interesting part, and I don't think it's any surprise to any of you guys. It's socioeconomics. It's where people stand financially. That's the divide. And instead of going at that with a spotlight, because that disrupts power, let's just go at the put this person against that person because of the way they look. And it's sickening in my mind. And go through Appalachia, any race, any background. I can't guarantee anything in life. There's going to be some racist asshole out there. But the majority, I would say, you show up with good intentions. You're a good person. You're going to get back exactly what you give. So the fact that Appalachia gets put under the bus like that sort of pisses me off, because it's easy, again, to label it all as this, and it's not. Okay, Maribel. Okay, you already thanked Maribel. Double thanks to Maribel. Barefoot Groupie. Thank you. DD, thank you. And guys, I want to get into your questions now. I've taken up enough of the oxygen. I'm curious why you guys think the series did so well. Like what was in it that people really want to see, or why were they really connecting with it? So, all right, we're going to go through the questions here. Can't answer all, obviously, but I'll try my best. Appalachia has always been the country's jokes. Most of the stereotypes can be true, but not the norm. Yeah, of course. There are plenty of morons, for sure. And there are plenty of morons everywhere. Like ignorant, unpleasant people. But I don't know where that doesn't exist, to be honest. I really do think most people are good if you approach them in a kind way, with confidence. I think you do pretty fine in most places. Okay. You may have seen a lot of white-seeming faces, but many of the people in these areas have Cherokee ancestry or Malungian. Yeah, Malungian, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's true. The Cherokee Reservation was amazing. It's the first res I've been on that looks better on the res than off the res. Like, they're doing well. at least it looks that way. Like, you never know going in with a person. You're getting their view of things, and you like some people take offense by that, like, oh, that's not how Cherokee is, and it's like, of course, you can't go into one person's story and say that's how it all is. Like, to do it, if there are 22,000 people out in Cherokee, then there are 22,000 stories, and to be fair, you'd get every one of those stories. So that's a challenge I have with the content, is finding good representatives, people with interesting stories, and like you're really happy that's online, and you're like, awesome, like that's gonna be a positive thing for people. And I'm always looking for that. That's the hardest part of this job, honestly, is to find the story. uh okay, ton of questions, guys. No visit to the Whitakers. No, my friend Mark Leda did that video, well, many videos there, and that was about the Inbred family. And that's for example, his space. He's going through, his channel is about, you know, drug dealers, prostitutes, people that have had a real rough life. And that was good exposure on that world, right? And I feel like there's no reason to. I think he did that really well. He got it all. There's why would I go back and do that? People were saying do that, and you can. That's like one of those guaranteed going to go viral videos, because it's just so, you're like, wow. First, I wouldn't do it out of respect to him. Like, he's already done that story. Like, I have respect for him as a creator. I wouldn't go there. And secondly, my goal of this Appalachian series was to shine a different perspective on it, where you don't just go into, the worst case scenarios and make that the story. Because the problem with creating content is, what I put out to the world is that's what people are going to see. Most people aren't going to go there. So I want them to be able to see different perspectives. As an Afghani, I saw a lot of similarities between us and the Appalachian people. And I get what you're saying here, because I've been in Tajikistan, and I've been with the Pashtun people, and I've been in Pakistan. And what I think you're trying to say is, there's a lot of honor, and there's a lot of culture, deep culture, and uh, people sticking together for survival's sake throughout the generations. And yeah, I could totally see what you're saying there. A lot of why not visit the Whitakers. I just explained that. Posted Whitaker. Okay, go to Mark's channel. He's got the videos there on the Whitakers. There's no electricity. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to think of something I haven't touched on here. So, guys, why I'm gonna put that question out there. Why do you think there was such a thirst or craving for content from Appalachia? What are your thoughts on that? Need an update on Titus? Yeah, Titus. Well, I'll present something to you soon about Titus. He's had, I think it's in the thousands of ladies either write personal letters or emails or call. Like, he's got a flurry of ladies interested in him. And so actually right now, and I don't want to say anything yet, I'll say it when the time comes. There's already a lady out there, and it's looking pretty serious. So I think she came out there like 3 or 4 days after the video, something like that. Okay. People are down to earth. That's why it works. Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's what it connected on with people. It's like, they're humble, down to earth. There's no showboating. Okay. There's no one like blinging anything. And I think that's a bit refreshing. Maybe that's why. Real stuff. It's the church. They have religion, obviously, but I heard from a lot of people that is declining a bit. And I did go in with the naive notion of it's going to be like the 90s out there and there are going to be kids on BMX bikes everywhere and it's going to be like 80s 90s kids and everyone's going to be playing in the rivers. I mean, I saw a little of it, but no, it's no different in rural America right now than urban areas. Kids are on the screens indoors a lot of times. Like everyone here right now involved, including myself, we're indoors and on a screen, and so it's not immune. That region is not immune at all. John, thank you. Kirk, thank you so much. Really appreciate these generous donations. Hound Herder, we have a dog person, I'm guessing. So appreciate you guys. My wife, Natalia, the reason we're doing this live stream is, and we take it very seriously, posting every week, except January's. January's we don't post, which doesn't mean off for me. Usually I'm out shooting videos, but I like to give her a rest from editing because we keep everything in house. And I always hear, why don't you just outsource it and get someone to edit? And it's not that simple because we're touching on these sensitive cultural topics that it could be interpreted a different way in an edit. Like literally the creator has the power to make anyone look great or anyone look terrible. As a video maker, someone who makes content, God, the power of the storyteller is everything. And I always want you guys to be aware of that. Like I try to be balanced as possible, but to watch my content, watch other people's content. No one has it, the truth. Nobody has how things exactly are, because if I'm doing a story on coal, like that's where my focus is. I'm not going to like halfway through the video, oh, there's a flower festival over here and let's go over here for the next 20 minutes of videos, like totally off topic, though that's existing at the same time. So always know that. Like in Chicago, I could go down a street and show one side of the street and it's beautiful buildings and perfectly clean streets. And then I can honestly show the other side where there are migrants in the alley getting prostituted. There are prostitutes there with their pimps. And I could literally show either side. And that's the story. And know that as a viewer that you're getting presented somebody, like always think through what are the intentions of the person you're watching. Where does the money come from? Always a good one. Know where the money comes from. I'll tell you where my money comes from. It comes from ad revenue from YouTube, the vast majority of it, which I have no control over. And off topic, now I'm getting off topic, but I'll get back on board with Appalachia. You get presented the ads you look at. For example, YouTube is Google. When you search, if you search for McDonald's every day, you'll probably get a McDonald's ad in one of my videos. So they're custom ads to you, unless I do a dedicated ad for a company that's baked into the video. But everything you see is from your searches online. Google's algorithms are amazing and they want to market things to you that they think you'll like. I get that question all the time. No, I didn't present the McDonald's ad. That has nothing to do. I have no control over any of that. Okay, guys, a couple more questions here. Did I see any black Amish people out there? No, I didn't, but I've heard of them. Really appreciate all the questions. Very cool. Did I get a chance to experience a Baptist experience? Let's just call it that. I didn't get into the church story. I didn't, unfortunately. So much of this is logistics. It's like I'm thinking diversity of story always. Like I can't give you two coal stories. I mean, there was some crossover, but I can't give you two stories on drugs or the focus is on drugs. Like you've already seen that. I've made that mistake before, but I'm trying to hit it from as many angles. And it's like, then how do you find that people? Then those people, then how do you organize it so they can meet on the day that you're there? And are they interesting on camera? Maybe they sound great on the phone, but are terrible on camera. So that's like, if I present to you someone that's really bad on camera, you're not going to watch the video, and I wouldn't either. So that's the hardest part is like sort of feeling it all out, but then keeping things very separate in the approaches. Like I just did the Chicago series, and I really was trying to get the wealthy story. And there was this very wealthy woman, and that would have balanced it out from what I was shooting, but it just fell through at the end. And that's the struggle. It's like I always try to want it. Here's a world. Now let's see it from different angles. And then you can learn from that. Okay, Donna says, I think the interest in Appalachia was so great because it was so misunderstood. Then when you started presenting it, your audience quickly realized it's much different than it's been shared in the media. Yeah, and I think there's this natural like rooting for the underdog in all of us. And Appalachia definitely is the underdog. And I don't mean that personally in anyone living there. Like, I'm just saying, like, in general, as the outside looks in, it's sort of the underdog. And when someone sees what's really cool about the underdog and something special, maybe what they don't even have in their culture or where they live, then it stops you in your tracks a bit. I think you're right on that. Yeah. Alex, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Way I allow people to explain themselves and tell their stories is sadly rare these days. I think it's more rare in the people creating media, unfortunately, like or on YouTube. Like I do not understand why I would want to go in as an outsider into somewhere and then just like just put them under the bus and leave. That's almost like extracting. I just think it's sort of disgusting, to be honest. Like, knowing where people are coming from. I don't care who anyone voted for. They have their reasons. Like, why do people do what they do? And if you get into their conditions and their situations, usually it becomes very apparent. And it's not me looking from how I look at the world. It's like me trying to get into their heads and how they look at the world. And that's what the content is. Like, let's get into their heads and where their thinking is. And you as the viewer agree or disagree with that. That's your choice. And I always need to stick to that. And that's like my North Star, to be there. Because who cares what I think all the time? That to me would be very boring content for me to make, to be honest. I want to learn. I want to listen to somebody. And if I don't agree with them, that's fine. And sometimes I won't say anything. And sometimes I'll push back if I feel I might challenge them on something. Not to say I'm right and they're wrong, but just to keep that going. But I have to feel it out because usually when I'm making these videos, I'm in their space. I'm on their turf in their terms. And if I'm, say, for example, on the native reservation with the local I'm with, Dylan, and I say a bunch of stuff that's just going to like close him up, then the video's over. It can be for any video. I'm just giving that one example. Like, so the goal is always to just hear them out. And then you can hear them out. And I don't know why that should be rare at all. That's just like being a curious person, I think. William Paul says, do you have any other series that are similar to the Appalachian series? Appalachia was really special, I gotta say. I would say, now getting into another culture, you could look at the Amish. That was really interesting because we think of Amish as Amish. And then when you dig in, they're Beachy Amish, they're Schwartz and Truber Amish with different values and beliefs. They're almost different people in the way they approach life. So everything's more complicated than you think. And I think the Amish would be, I would say if you want to go to one after this one, go to the Amish if you haven't seen it. Okay. Couple more. We'll probably cap it off in an hour here. We're at 54 minutes. What is your next series, Dave Stokes? You know, Dave, I always used to like say series out what I'm doing. And nobody has the rights or special privilege to any place or people or series or any of that stuff. So that's what I'm going to say here. But there are a lot of people, they see a success of a video and they just copy it. They're like hoovering up right behind, like, oh, that person, a lot of people are in this space for the most amount of likes and clicks and success in a video. And you want all your videos to be successful. But I'm also not scared to do a story that I know is just by the nature of the story is not going to do super well. But I think it's an important story to get out. But there are there's a lot of copying for sure. And so now I'm not going to say what I'm doing next for that reason. And everyone's free and to do what they want. And, like for example, I did a video with Titus, and then all these creators are calling Titus, trying to do a video with him right after. And Titus, do all the videos you want and do everything. I don't like zero issues with that. But I just think from a creative standpoint, it's a bit weak to like go that directly copying people. Like, again, I don't have the rights to any of the people have done videos on Appalachia. I'm not the first one, obviously. But I wouldn't go to someone's like video that they did really well at and like a couple weeks later try to get that exact character and make that exact video. I think that's quite weak as a creator. Like that's, for example, why I wouldn't go to the Whitakers to try to do a story with them when Mark already did that. I respect him as a creator. He's done a lot of amazing work, and why would I step on his toes, even though he has no rights to that family exactly? It's just sort of like, don't you're well, I'll leave that aside. I have kids on here. I'm trying to not swear at all and keep the language very clean. I don't swear much, but I'm just saying I had an example that would back that up, but I'll move on. Okay. Ghost Town Living Man. Can I interview with Ghost Town Living Man? I'd be open to that. Something Gordo, Sierra Gordo, I believe he's in. Very cool story. I've seen a few of his videos. It's really cool content. I'd be totally open to that. And I don't do the collab thing really much because my story is about getting into someone else's world. And, if it's another creator just making videos about something, then I don't see the benefit. When I did a collab with like Mark from Soft White Underbelly, we went into Skid Row. That's his wheelhouse. He knows it inside and out. And I want to learn from him, and he can give me access that I wouldn't get normally. So it's a very rare thing, to be honest. Love your Appalachian series. Can you do more of these? I think down the road, but from reading where you guys are at, after you do about 8 videos on a series, I think people are ready to move on. Some people want it forever, and some people are like, all right, I've seen Appalachia for the last 2 months. Get me out of here. Totally understandable. And that's how I am when I watch content. Like if I listen to, say, Joe Rogan, I'm not going to, the MMA stuff doesn't interest me so much, or the comedians don't interest me so much. So I usually go to just the topics that interest me. And I totally understand, some things just aren't going to resonate with people. And that's how everyone is. So wouldn't want you to ever watch anything that you don't want to watch. That's understandable. Okay, Sandy, thank you so much. Respected you going out to Eagle's Nest, and first to go out to Eagle's Nest, and I respect that. Eagle's Nest was the wealthy neighborhood in North Carolina. It wasn't the wealthy are bad and this is good. It's just like a lot of these topics are sticky, and I'm just showing them what's taking place. There is a massive divide in the country, and I think in many places we're just getting more money and less, right? And so you have a lot of people moving out to the countryside, and that changes the cultural dynamic of a place. And I don't have the solution. I've seen it happen so many times. I used to live in Lake Tahoe, California, late 90s, 2000s. It was more of a locals place. Then the Bay Area found it. I mean, it was always second homes for them, but then it really kicked up. And especially after the pandemic, then it's like all the people I know that have lived there, most have left. And it's turned into very, very expensive real estate. I've seen it everywhere. I don't have the solution for it. I've been on both sides of it. I lived in Lake Tahoe. Now I live in Florida, and My wife and I live in a house, not too far from the ocean, 5 minutes away. And I'm sure my moving here, I'm part of the problem because real estate has gone up, and I bought at market prices. Though I'll say I didn't build a new home or buy land that wasn't built on before. Like someone had to move out for me to move in. So it's a touchy subject for sure. Okay, Alex, you've mentioned a few times about the media landscape and how its goal these days seems to be division. Do you think realistically this will change anytime soon? And what do you think we can do to speed up that change? Um, well, we're in such a fascinating time with information and media and people like me creating, that the gatekeepers that controlled it all before don't. So um, you can choose to watch me, or look, I'm not news, but you could spend your time on watching legacy media. Like you only have two eyeballs, and where is your time being spent? And that's where the competition is right now. And so stuff like this is taking away from stuff like that. If you look at ratings and like some of these videos can blow any mainstream production out of the water. I mean, that's what's crazy. These crazy times we're in. So I think there's hope in platforms like YouTube or different podcasts where you can get your information without a gatekeeper. I mean, the gatekeeper is YouTube, but for now, like pretty much everyone can be on it. So it's changing, but I think it's generational too. I was just back with my mom in Vermont, and wonderful woman, but her media sources have been the same forever, and she's not understanding that they're not what they were, and everything's been either siloed into an information echo chamber to some degree. And I don't think, maybe things weren't ever balanced at all, but maybe we just didn't have all these options, to see things from different perspectives. So I think it's changing. I know in 5 years we're in a totally different, who knows where the world is in 5 years, but on the media side of things and content, like YouTube just surpassed streaming, like online just surpassed networks, I believe. That happened recently, and it's only going in that direction. The thing is, and I want to just share this thought that most people probably understand, is as a creator, I could take one side of things completely. And of course, I have my opinions and my bias. Everybody does. Nobody's like totally fair and balanced right in the middle. It's impossible. Just by the story they're going to shoot shows where their interest is. So I'm not going to shoot things I'm not curious or interested about. So that can show you like, and I try to go wide. I mean, I'm with the Hasidic Jews. I'm everything from the Amish to the Bloods and Crips. We're going pretty wide, but there's things I want to stay as wide as possible. But just know there's always the creator always has what they're interested in. But to be successful, this channel's proving this a bit wrong, and others are proving it wrong. But to be successful online, it's better like to pick a side and just go that direction fully. So whatever media is out there now, I don't know any media that's fully balanced or cares for truth to be the North Star. They're going to be selective in what stories they pick, and they're going to double down on that, which pushes an ideology or pushes an emotion or a reaction from its viewer. And that is very profitable. So everything's gone subscription based, like the big papers, the New York Times or Wall Street Journal. They're subscription based. So you have like if I start doing some really terrible stuff, I'm going to piss all you guys off, and you're gone. As it should be. So you pick one side, you double down, you feed people what they want, you continue on. And that's where we're at. So that needs to break up. This is an example where half my audience, this is crazy. YouTube gives you the option on the back end to see what other channels your audience is watching. I have MSNBC and Fox right next to each other as far as where people on this channel are getting their media from. I'm very proud of half. I would say almost half is on the left, half is on the right. Now, I don't think we have any fringe people here because I'll question things. I'll do stuff on the border, and that would piss certain people off just by showing the border because it's put in this bucket of right wing. Or I'll do Muslims in America that would piss people off on the other side because it would be looked at as left wing, whatever. Pick your topic, and everything's being categorized right now. But on the ground, it's way more complicated than that. People have all different views and ideas, and um, yeah. So my goal is always to be as fair as possible, which that's the North Star. I don't want to trigger people, but I want to expose them to things that maybe they haven't seen, and they make up their own minds. All right, guys. Susan, thank you for bringing perspectives of people without judgment and creating a window for us to see into worlds we don't know well or understand. Yeah, thanks, Susan. That's the point of this. We got a great country in the US. Like, people don't understand, a lot don't understand how awesome this country is. And my perspective comes through being in 85 countries, living in 4 different countries overseas, and appreciating America now more than ever before. It's a beautiful place. Yes, it's got many deep, hard problems. Um, but a lot of the attributes in what this country is founded on, and just like my wife said, it's a build your own bowl experience. You want your protein. Okay, that's your topography. Like, you want to live in the high desert or in the tropics. Okay, and then you pile on sort of what culture you want, and then you sprinkle on this or that, and you can sort of build your own bowl. I mean, most people are where they're at. My wife's had a interesting perspective of seeing the country from living in Ukraine all our life to coming to the States, and we came back to San Francisco and we moved to Florida, and those are 2 different worlds. And she's like, wow, it's so cool how there's so many different realities in the United States. I mean, that's just one attribute. The other one is it's all the animals from the zoo in one cage, and they sort of get along. Despite what everyone tells us, I go into the grocery store, I see people from all different backgrounds. It's great. I love it. It's beautiful. It's such a cool thing. It's not like being in Ukraine where I lived, or Poland, where it's very one. It's feels like one culture, one identity, and that can be great in its own right too. But I love that America is a vibrant, exciting, interesting place, and because of its history of allowing people to express themselves how they'd like and be who they want to be without with the least amount of resistance culturally, you get the most amount of creativity and exploration. And things like, why do all these companies come out of here? It's because someone with a crazy idea goes for it, and it works. Airbnb or YouTube, any one of these companies. Of course, you have Spotify from Sweden, and other countries and cultures can figure that out too. But as a system, Elon Musk comes to the United States, doesn't go to Italy to make his dream come true. And it's a beautiful thing. What I'm trying to show in the content is our systemic problems of poverty cycles, of drugs, of crime, which all stems from a lack of guidance and a lot of fatherhood figures that might not be there, setting good examples, or mothers that are, if someone's on heroin, then good luck for their kid. And getting to the root of all of these problems, building the DNA of this country, is something I can't do structurally, but I can show what's going on and hope that we can come together instead of being divided when we're really not, actually, for the most part. I think you take any one of the big issues, I'd say 85% of people are on the same page. Seriously, everyone wants their kids to be in better schools. Everyone wants the healthcare system to work better when they just, where do I go to a doctor? I honestly don't know right now. I got to find one. I don't have one. People would want. We have great healthcare. You get in an accident, need brain surgery. I'd rather be nowhere else. But there are many things that could be fixed that we're all on board with. So All right, guys, a couple more. I'm extending, but I'm having fun answering your questions. Lori Kennison, sorry, from Northern Vermont. Hey, Lori, thanks for thanks for the donation. I was just in Vermont yesterday. My mom lives there in Southern Vermont now, and I never appreciated the place growing up, but going back, ooh, it was amazing. It was just simple childhood in the sense that you rode your bike everywhere and pretty much no crime and nature and clean air and all that sort of stuff. Now I respect it and glad I grew up there. Okay. I've traveled a lot in this country. I've been in some of the places you have. Thank you for being a true journalist. Thanks, Jen. I've said this many times. I don't consider myself a journalist because I'm old school in the sense that I feel journalists need many sources. Institutional journalism um, needs the resources and the time to put into stories. So if I'm going to any one of these places, and touching on a hot topic, say about drugs, I'd want to hit it from many different angles and spend months in the region learning about that and edit that in a way that comes all together. And in my storytelling is I'm meeting up with a guy and we're going through his world and we're learning from him and I'm pushing back in areas and he's teaching us this or that, but it's still through him. So I don't consider it journalism because of that. Sort of like in between travel vlogging and journalism. But I'll take it. Thank you. Thank you. We just have a terrible. We need a good. I'm not the guy that's like we don't need institutions or um, legacy news. I think we need an institutional setup where people from all sides, like a lot of us, are just craving for truth. Like I don't have a dog in the fight whether it goes blue or red. It's like just get me to the truth. That's what I want to know. I'm not a tribal person. Is like I have to be in the group. I've always sort of been out of the group. That's what allows me to do this work. Is I can get into any group and pretty much get along with them. Um, that's where a lot of us are craving. And my mom asked, like, what should I look at for news? I'm like, I got a bunch of these people, creators, and that, and this, and that. But I'm like, as far as like a one place to get 30 minutes of like really unbiased coverage, I don't know of one. Just don't know of one. I think that should hopefully that develops in the coming years here. Carol, working my way through your vids. First found you when you were in the Middle East. Thanks for the donation. Yeah, Middle East is what a lot of you are new here. This started in Ukraine. I lived in Ukraine for 4 years. I did a series with a family living in the countryside with absolutely nothing financially, um, but a very beautiful family. And I lived with them and shot a docu series with them, and that did pretty well. And then it was sort of a rough road getting it going. I had another business, but this is what I wanted to do. I didn't know how I'd make it happen. And then I went to the Middle East, went to Iran. Really interesting series, difficult shoot because of the government there. Saudi Arabia, Pakistan. That's where all this started, guys. For those that don't know. And then back to the pandemic brought my wife and I back because we couldn't I couldn't travel out of Ukraine. All the flights stopped. I already shot like 40 Ukrainian videos. There's like nothing else I really wanted to get into. And so I'm like, okay, I'll go back to the US. And there was no guarantee it was going to work here. Zero guarantee. And it was like 3 years ago. That's it, 3 years ago. And that's when the channel really started taking off because it just went into all these different communities in the country, didn't look back. And I'm fascinated with the US. I feel like my purpose is here, at least right now. Like this is where the work is needed and where it's important. Because now I want to give to my country, as cheesy as that sounds, maybe you just look at it as entertainment that I'm showing, but I feel like I see America from a different perspective and I appreciate it way more. And I want to help show what I'm seeing instead of the message makers that all they do is divide us. Whether it's the politicians or the media, but for the most part, it's like it was a shocker coming back in 2020 to Vermont and looking at the local media there was just absolute garbage I was looking at. just all this divisive content. And I'm like, God, they have such limited perspective. Like, get out in the world a bit, go to India for a month, and then come back and talk about it. Like, I was just thanking life for how beautiful the air was, how clean the air is in this country. People don't know. Like, look at airvisual.com. So much of the world has terrible air, and I dealt with it in Ukraine. I was getting sick from it. Like, no catalytic converters on trucks. And just coming back to a country where the air is clean for the most part. And if you don't believe me, look at airvisual.com. You'll see a big red cancerous sore over China and India. Like, just having clean air is a huge blessing. China is horrible for the ecology is not good there. That's for sure. Go to Hawaii. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're a two-man band. I have a guy helping me out with the channel. His name's Drew. He's awesome. We're doing like we're doing like an OTT, like a Patreon, but like developed on our website. We're working that. So there's gonna be additional content. But it's just me and my wife. By design, I can either be a super like creative and in these thoughts and thinking of the stories, or I can be managing a team. And to do what we're doing, I have to be like fully in it creatively. It will lose its essence, I feel, if I hired people to do a lot of this work. So it's just my wife and me for the most part. And meaning we can't get on hot stories. Like, something happens, get on the plane. We already have the rest of our year planned. Like, I already have plane tickets bought and things set up. And I can't be the quick news guy, unfortunately. I will get that story down the road, though, for sure. Like, it's on the list. It's just not going to happen immediately. And when I'll do it is months after, and there'll be different information, and maybe it won't be as hot of a topic or as popular for people to watch. But I always felt like I always wanted to know what happened to places after the cameras went away. The first Iraqi war, 1991. I was a kid. We saw a bunch of fireworks, basically. 72 hours of bombing? And then it was like nothing existed. I was always like, what is it like there now? What are the people like there now? What's changed in the country? And that information didn't exist. And so I like to do that too, even if it's less popular. To get to a place like months after things have settled down, more information has presented itself, and we can get a different perspective. So I feel like the people that are over there, there's probably a fight to get all that content out. Not a fight, but like just a mad dash, and it's just not our format. I'll get there though. All right, guys. All right. A lot of good stuff in here. Montreal, Canada. City means a lot to me. I grew up near Montreal in Vermont. We used to go up there from a young age, actually. That was like the urban environment. We had anywhere to go. It was there, or New York City. Didn't travel at all as a kid other than those two places. So great times in Montreal at the Forum watching the Canadians. First concert, Rush, ages 16. Pearl Jam. Blake, yes, Titus has found, I don't know if we're calling her girlfriend or fiance. I'll let you guys know soon. That information is landing as we speak. Gemma said, most desired country you want to go to or have not been to yet. I'm really, as crazy as it might sound, I'm so pumped on not going to another country. I'm really happy about being in the U.S. because I've seen 85 countries. I've been back to Istanbul, like when I lived in Ukraine. I've been to Istanbul probably 20 times. I love that city. I feel like I always wanted to show Americans the world, and now I want to show Americans America. And I'm showing myself America. Really, guys, we have such a massive country with so many different people living in so many different ways that most of us don't know about. including myself. I knew nothing about natives, zero. Now I'm learning about, I've been on what, 7 different reservations, 8 reservations. There are 575 recognized tribes in the country. Got so much to go on that. Peter has a master's in common sense. I don't know. I think most of you do, right? Yeah, California. I'll be doing a lot more California content down the road because A, I live there a lot, and B, it's misunderstood in many ways. Like, no, people don't understand north of San Francisco, which is pretty much half the state. Like, nobody lives, hardly anyone. There's such beauty up there and some radical landscapes. All right, guys. Uh, what do I got to say? Thank you so much. Glad you like the Appalachian series. Got a lot more coming. Always thinking of new ideas, new groups, new areas to show you, new perspectives. And without you guys, none of this exists. You've made my dreams come true. So I'm forever grateful to you, respect you as an audience. Like when I'm making content, when I'm thinking of stories, when we're editing, all these decisions, I'm thinking of you guys, like to offer the best I can to you. In gratitude, I would just be talking to myself doing this stuff if it wasn't for you guys. And the channel's big enough where it can support our lives and we can go full time. And that's again all because of you guys watching the content. So lastly, if you are sick of ads on YouTube, get the premium. And this probably does worse for me. It doesn't matter. I have premium where I think it's what, $15 a month. You don't get any ads. So if the ads, I get people complaining, oh, there's too many ads in the video. Well, it's how we make it. I don't have to sell out to anyone. I'm saying like no to 95% of different companies trying to sponsor the video. Like, I don't want to sell you gold. You know, I'm not going to try to make financial recommendations in this channel for you. I think that's out of place. And so there's so much stuff, so many nutritional companies. I'm like, yeah, maybe it does something, but looks like crap for the most part. And I've done some of this, like I did a cereal company before. And honestly, it was the best cereal I've eaten. But do I eat it on a regular basis? No. So I'm not going to push that all the time. So really, it's the ads on this channel when you're watching that make all this happen. So if they get to you, get premium. It's worth the money. All right, guys. Great to connect. Thank you so much for being part of this. I wish you all the best. I always take ideas into my email, contact@petersantenello.com, because a lot of you, I want to thank a lot of you who have come out and actually either led me to stories or been in stories. Without that, it doesn't exist. It's a team effort here. It's you guys watching. It's me creating, thinking about ideas. It's subjects coming into the videos. It's my wife editing. It's YouTube who made this platform so we can all make this happen. It's a lot of different people coming together. My wife doesn't like to be on camera or want any credit. She wants credit beneath the scenes for sure. But she's very proud of this content. She holds it true to her heart. Without her, this channel definitely would not be close to what it is right now. So there are a lot of people here. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Take care.